Hello and welcome to the conference. My name is Brett Hill, and this first session is Scott Shute doing the keynote. We're really excited to be here. But what would a mindful conference or a conference that involves mindfulness be without taking a moment to actually be mindful? And so we're going to be opening these sessions with just taking a moment to transition and get here. So for the next minute, and that's really all, just take a moment and just take a breath and relax and arrive. We all have busy lives and we have too much going on often. So we're just going to take a moment and relax, and maybe you close your eyes, maybe you don't. But the point is just arrive. Kind of press pause for a little while. And bring your attention to bear on your experience of now. Relaxing and transitioning. And just noticing what goes on. I know for me, those moments always matter, just taking a little bit of time to transition. I'd like to welcome you to The Future is Mindful and introduce Mark Montalban, my partner. Mark, are you on screen here? Seems like there he is.
Hello. Thanks for that, Brett. Always great to spend some time to center and be present. Welcome, everyone, to the Future is Mindful Virtual Summit. We're excited to be here and bring everyone together. I'm Mark Montalban, co-host of The Future is Mindful. I'm also CEO of MindfulText. Just a little bit of an intro. Throughout my career, I've been focused on entrepreneurship, more recently working in the mindfulness space because of its strong impact it had on me personally. Brett and I actually met last year at a certification program by the Institute for Organizational Science and Mindfulness, and we connected on the idea that mindfulness could be elevated in the discussion of how workplaces are navigating these challenging times. So we just wanted to bring people together and help share more about how mindfulness provides amazing benefits to individuals, also organizations, and ultimately, help people implement mindfulness solutions successfully. That's a little bit about how the Future is Mindful came about and why we're here. And now I'll hand it back off to Brett.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, this was an amazing event to just kind of craft from conception to being here right now. And my focus has always been on mindful communications, which I've been working on for way too many years, it seems. And so it was just sort of a natural fit for Mark and I to start talking about, well, it seems to us that this conversation wants to happen, this idea about how can mindfulness impact work and the future of work, because so much was going on. And we have some really great talks about that, beginning with Scott Shute, who's going to join us. And we're so excited to have him as well for our first keynote ever on The Future is Mindful. Mark, so without further ado, I'd just like to bring on Scott and say, Scott, we're so happy to have you here.
I'm glad to be here, and here I am. It took us a while on the tech. Sorry, folks.
That's okay. We're working out the kinks with air meet, and it's a little bit new to a bunch of us, so I really appreciate that. Um, whenever we reached out to you and you said, "Yeah, you'd love to talk," we were so excited and stoked because we've been, many of us in the audience have been fans of yours and followers of your work for years and years, and your excellent book, and so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here and open our conference for us.
My pleasure. Well, thank you for having me, and it's so wonderful to be with everybody. I mean, just first of all, let's just take it in. We're here talking about mindfulness and even mindfulness in the workplace. I just kind of pinch myself after, 30 years of not talking about it. Here we are in my own career. Well, before we get started, I know we took a moment, but if you're like me, you've been on literally thousands of these types of calls in the last couple of years, and it can be a lot. There can be a lot of distractions. You might have multiple windows open. Maybe you're still doing something else. Maybe you're still checking email or kind of half listening. And so my invitation to you is treat this as if we were all together. This is our community. Treat this as if we were all together in person. So just kind of take a moment and feel into however many of us there are here, and imagine you're right there. In fact, maybe even kind of virtually look around in your mind's eye at each other. Smile. It's part of the practice, right? Part of our daily practice is this practice of being present. Okay, I am going to talk about changing work from the inside out. You might read and open a newspaper if you still have one, or a news browser, and look at the world and think, what a mess. Or even at your work, you might look at your workplace and think, what a mess. And for almost all my career, I struggled with this idea of staying in the workplace. I wanted to go fix the world. But I was guided to stay. And one of my favorite quotes is from Rumi. A lot of you, I'm sure, are Rumi fans. He says, "Yesterday I was clever, and I tried to change the world. But today I am wise, and I'm working on changing myself." And that's what I'm talking about changing work, changing the world from the inside out. Okay, so I had this job. I was a VP of Global Customer Operations at LinkedIn, but beyond that, I was the head of mindfulness and compassion programs for 3 years. But how did that happen? Well, I'd had this career, I started with an engineering degree. I went into sales, I went into customer service and leadership, and et cetera. And there was that part of it, which was nice. But there was this other part of my life where I started a meditation or a contemplation practice when I was 13. I started teaching that when I was at university. And it's been a huge part of my life, but one that I never talked about at work until I got to LinkedIn about 8 or 9 years ago. And it was a very open place. And I thought, wow, such an open place. Maybe I can bring my full self to work. And I had this conversation with my buddy who runs Global Wellness. I was asking him if we ever did anything with meditation. And he started talking about what we had done in the past. And he sees this look on in my face and he goes, "Wait a minute, do you do something? Like, could you do something?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I could do something." And we both got really excited, right? Because here's this VP who's going to lead a wellness program. And I got really excited. I went back to my desk and I did absolutely nothing about it for 3 or 4 months because I was terrified. I mean, I had all this inner ego nonsense. Like, what are people going to think of me? What is this going to do for my brand? And all this other nonsense. But I finally got over all of that. And I led my first session Thursday afternoon at 4:30 in the Heavenly Conference Room, which I thought was quite auspicious. And that first time, there was one guy there. So imagine sitting kind of, face to face. I'm sure he was just as terrified as I was. Never saw that dude again. But the next week there were 3, and then there were 5, and then it became a regular thing. And then people knew that I did it, so I got invited to bigger things. The CFO had an offsite with 400 finance people and invited me to kick it off with a meditation. And it just grew and grew and snowballed and snowballed. And I raised my hand to be the executive sponsor of our mindfulness program. We didn't really have one, so we created one, myself and a bunch of other volunteers. And then for me, the tipping point was about 4 years ago. Our CEO at the time, Jeff Weiner, gave the commencement address at Wharton and talked about compassion. Right? In a commencement address, you have 15 minutes to share your best piece of advice. And his advice was, look, if you're going to be successful in this world, in life, at work, be compassionate. And he told his own story. And the next day he's on TV with Good Morning America. And this is all the reporters want to talk about, is compassion in leadership, compassion in business. And I was thinking, okay, it's time. It's time for me, because I'd been in my operations role for a long time. I was ready to do something new. But also it's time for LinkedIn, because essentially our CEO just told the about 15,000 employees of LinkedIn that compassion was the most important thing that they could do. So I made a pitch to our head, to Jeff and our head of HR, and together we created this role, head of mindfulness and compassion. And my vision and mission is still true to this day. Change work from the inside out by mainstreaming mindfulness and operationalizing compassion. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's break it up. First, let's talk about the mindfulness side of things. On the mindfulness side of things, it's really just about making it mainstream, just making it as normal and everyday as physical exercise. So it's things like, yes, we had regular meditation sessions, including mine on Thursdays at 4:30. And over time, we ended up with 40 or 50 or 60 of those every week across the world. We would do workshops on building resilience and on growth mindset. We would have community drop-in programs. We gave everybody access to an app. We like the Wise at Work app from our friends at Wisdom Labs, as well as their community program. And every year around October, we would do a 30-day challenge to get employees using that app. And we would give them, free swag, maybe a free hoodie or t-shirt if they completed the challenge. And what I would say is never underestimate the power of a free hoodie on human behavior, because we had lots and lots and lots of people that had never meditated. All of a sudden, we're using the app 20 times in the month of October. And so we saw results. But, some people ask, why? Why spend any time on this at all? Like, what are you guys doing? And to answer that question fully, I think about the history of work. This is the 90-second history of work. I've summed it up into, at least my view on things. We started with the agrarian age, thousands of years ago, still for some industries, still in the agrarian age. But if you imagine the times of building the pyramid 5,000 years ago, you had kings and slaves, or landowners and serfs, and workers were not treated very well. And then we had the industrial age in the 1800s. Even now, some industries are in the industrial age. And still, imagine thousands of us all building the exact same thing in a factory. In some cases, throughout history, workers still not treated very well or valued very highly, often viewed as just replaceable by the factories themselves, just part of the machinery. But now, in the information age, this is what it looks like. And a company like LinkedIn or Microsoft or many other companies, they don't have hard assets many of the times. LinkedIn, we didn't have any hard assets. We don't have a manufacturing line. We're not selling copper or cars. We're selling data. Which means that our number one asset, by a long ways, our number one asset is our people. Our people. And it's hard to argue with. And in the last couple years, you all know the drill. Our people, us, we included, have struggled. If you think about us as a machine, we're not operating at 100%. Right? The CDC will tell us that about a third of us on any given day are struggling with symptoms of anxiety or depression. In a different study, over 85% of people over the pandemic said they were feeling emotionally drained. And for me, most disturbing is this last one from the CDC. 11%, which is 1 in 9, of people said that in the last 30 days, they seriously considered taking their own life. This is way up, way higher than pre-pandemic. So the mental well-being is a challenge. And these mindfulness programs can help with that. And what we find is that employees want more from their employers. They're asking for more, right? And they're feeling like, look, there's no more separation. I'm working at home, which means I'm also sleeping at work. There's no separation between my outside life and my work life. It's all one thing. And work, I need more help. I need more help with my mental well-being. And so more companies are getting serious about this and taking notice. Now, I'm a business guy, and people ask me, and I want to know too, what's the ROI? Like, what is the ROI of these programs? And I have to not roll my eyes, because nobody's asking the guy who runs the gym, what's the ROI? Or, what's the ROI on the thermostat at work if you turn the temperature from 69 to 67 or 71? Each one of those things makes us better as a human, but nobody asks them. But I get past my eye rolling. And I measure things like this. First, it's consumption. If we offer a program, do people come? And then it's customer satisfaction. Do they like it? Now, outside of work, we know from the work of Richie Davidson and others in the industry, there are over 6,000 peer-reviewed scientific papers on the benefits of a mindfulness practice. That is well-worn territory. We already know that mindfulness reduces stress, reduces anxiety, increases the quality of our relationships, increases our creativity, increases the quality of our sleep. And obviously, those make us as a person and as a worker, as an employee, better. Now, I do think that over time, we'll find that the research on mindfulness practice, on things like productivity, on hard things like productivity, I think we'll find positive things there as well. We are not quite there yet in terms of the research. But for me, I like the stories. I like the anecdotal evidence. A young woman, we'll call her Lisa, reached out to me during the pandemic time to thank me for the programs we were offering at LinkedIn. Now, she's keeping it all together, right? It's like a duck, with everything going on but below the water. On top, everything looks like it's great. She has 2 little kids at home. She's in sales. She has a big number to carry. And she's trying to keep it all together, even when daycare was closed and she had to provide daycare and do her work and manage the household all at the same time. She said, because of these programs, I am screaming at my kids a lot less. And she laughed and I laughed, and I could tell that she was kidding, but not kidding, because I've been there. Maybe you've been there too. You know what it's like. She said, look, I'm a better version of myself. I'm a better mom. I'm a better partner. I'm better at home. I'm better at work. I'm a better version of myself. I'm still alive. I'm doing this every day. And I thought, yeah, this is why we do this work. This is why it's so important. You imagine every single one of our employees, getting to be a better version of themselves. Mark Bertolini, who is the CEO of Aetna and had his own experience with mindfulness and meditation, said, look, if we save one life, who cares about the money? He said it a little more colorful way, but who cares about the money? And that's true. Who cares about the money? It's about your most valuable asset. I mean, imagine if your most valuable machine in the industrial age in a factory was over in the corner, clunking away at 60%. Would you ask what the ROI to fix it would be? No, of course not. You just go fix it. But still, there are doubters. And so for those doubters, I want to talk about evolution a little bit. A few years ago, I was at my mom's in the middle of Kansas. I grew up on a farm in Kansas, and we went to an antique store because there's not much to do, so we needed to make our own fun, our own activity. And in this antique store was a pile of old Time and Life magazines. And I was about to turn 50. And I wanted some old magazines from my birth year, from 1969, because I wanted to see what the consciousness of the people was like when I entered the world. And so I'm thumbing through these old magazines, and some things have changed and some things have not changed. Well, so it's kind of funny. Some things haven't changed. This is a real cover. This is Prince Charles on the front, and there's a headline that says, "Is Prince Charles necessary?" Poor guy, 52 years later, we're still asking this question. So some things haven't changed, but some things have changed a lot. So as I was reading these magazines, there were articles about race and gender that would make us pucker today, that would probably get that reporter fired today if they wrote it in the same way. There were advertisements for sugar as the natural energy source. There are advertisements for tobacco, for cigarettes. And the pitch man was a medical doctor in a white lab coat talking about the benefits of nicotine in the afternoon as a healthy boost. Some things have changed. In this same magazine, there's an article about a Midwestern swim team that they'd won a couple championships, and the reporter went to go see what was going on. And the headline was giant. The headline said, "Athletes subject themselves to self-torture in order to win." And I was thinking, what? Self-torture? What are these guys doing? You know, they're swimmers. So are they waterboarding or electroshock therapy? What are they doing? Okay, in 1969, you want to know what was so cutting edge, so strange? They were lifting weights. They were doing strength training. And in 1969, this was cutting edge. This was bizarre. Why would you self-torture like that? This swim team was on the cutting edge and they were winning. Exactly like companies who are employing mental exercise, like physical exercise, are winning. You see, because physical exercise is a new thing. Right? Our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they didn't have a Peloton. They didn't join a gym. They didn't run. They worked hard. They might go for a walk, but they weren't exercising for fun. This is a new thing. Only in the last 40 years is this popular. And now it's so popular that if you wanted to put a gym at work or give people free access to, physical exercise, no one would blink an eye. And this is where we're headed in mindfulness, mental exercise, right? The corollary is mental exercise. But here's the thing, physical exercise is commonplace, but how many of our employees do we need to run a 6-minute mile or to bench press their weight or to be able to do 100 push-ups? Probably not very many. But how many of our employees do we need to be mentally focused, emotionally stable? Like I said, it's obvious. This is a no-doubter. And I guarantee you it's not going to take 50 years for every company in the world, I hope, to have mindfulness and meditation as part of their offerings in their wellness organizations. Okay, so I mentioned I had 2 parts to my role. Mainstream mindfulness. The second is operationalized compassion. This is where I get really excited. Because mainstreaming mindfulness is about us, it's about ourselves, but compassion is how we work together. And that's how we do everything as a company in the workplace. So first, a bit of a definition. Lots of definitions about compassion. I like this one. First, it's about capacity, because our capacity ebbs and flows moment by moment, day by day. Capacity for 3 things: awareness of others, a mindset of wishing the best for them, and then the big one, courage, the courage to take action. The courage to take action. And this makes sense in individuals, teams, and companies. It's a success strategy. Let me explain. Some of you have probably heard of Adam Grant or read the book Give and Take by Adam Grant. And he discovers that in the world of workers, there's this range of people. On the one hand, you have selfless givers, and on the other hand, you have takers. So in a negotiation, they just want to take the whole pie. And he discovers that at work, takers do better than selfless givers, which is kind of a bummer if you're into, the future of humanity. But he goes on to discover another class of workers that do better than everyone else. They are the most successful at work. And these are people who are givers at heart, but they are also looking out for themselves. In other words, they are solving for the whole. They're solving for the whole, not just me, but the whole, the we. And this is true in teams as well. In teams, Google did a project called Project Aristotle. They were looking for what are the factors that build the high performing teams. I'm not sure what they thought that they would find, but here's what it's not. The number one factor is not IQ or GPA or where you went to school or even the level of diversity. The number one factor in building a high performing team is psychological safety. In other words, can I be myself in front of you? Can I fail and know that you'll have my back? Even harder, can I win and know that you'll have my back? Imagine if we're on a sales team and I'm at 220% of quota with 3 weeks to go and you're at 75%. Are you going to be compassionate towards me? I hope so, because that's what real compassion is. It's moving from the me to the we. And this also works for companies. Raj Sisodia and the team that wrote Firms of Endearment and later Conscious Capitalism did the research that shows that companies who, instead of just focusing on money, the shareholders, they balance the needs of all of their stakeholders. They are more successful. So in other words, companies who balance the needs of their employees, they make it a great place to work and a place where employees can do their best work. Customers, they provide long-term value for customers and really try to solve their problems. And finance, they have a great business model. These are the companies who are most successful. In fact, they're 14 times more successful than the S&P average. 1,400% more. 1,400% more profitable. So yes, compassion is a feel-good thing. It is what makes the world go round, and it also is the way you build a successful business, a successful career. All right, so what does it mean? What does it mean to operationalize? Well, here's some examples. If we really want to do this, the head of sales will stand in front of 3,000 people at sales kickoff and say, look, our job as salespeople is to provide long-term value to the customer. So please do not sell something our customers don't need. Don't sell something they don't need at the end of the quarter just so you can hit your quota. That has compassion at the roots, remember? Awareness of others, a mindset of wishing the best for them, and then the courage to take action. This is the hardest part, the courage to take action. It happens in product as well. At LinkedIn, which is a very compassionate place, generally, we would have product reviews 5, 6, 8 times a week. And product review is when a product manager comes in and pitches the next version of their product. Hey, here's what the product's going to do and the results, right? It's like Shark Tank without all the attitude. And so if a product manager says, hey, with this next rev, we're going to get 14% more engagement, 14% more clicks. The first question, if they don't answer it themselves, the first question is always, okay, well, what's the member experience like? In other words, what's the customer experience like? And if the product manager says something like, well, it's not great, but hey, did I mention it's 14% more clicks? The meeting stops, it shuts down. And this then becomes an object lesson on our number one value, which is members first. Awareness of others, a mindset of wishing the best for them, and then the courage to take action. Sometimes in product, sometimes as a company, we have to take action for our customers in a way that does not benefit us, the company, in the short term. But if we provide enough value long-term to those customers, it will pay off for everyone. We move from the me to the we. It also happens in customer service. In my gig as leading customer operations, I had a team of 1,000 people spread out over the world. And I was visiting my team in Omaha and visiting the staff there. And there's a young woman who had this note, a little sticky note, yellow note on her monitor that said grandma. And we were chatting by her desk, and finally I just asked her, I'm saying, what? Tell me, I gotta know. I'm curious. I got a curious mind. What's the note about? And she didn't want to say it at first, but we talked about it. She's like, this can be a hard job sometimes. Every day I handle 30 or 40 or 60 cases, customer inquiries every day. And sometimes it's monotonous. They're calling or texting about the same things, or sometimes they're just not very nice to me. And I get frustrated. And sometimes when I get frustrated, I'm not the person I want to be. I don't serve them the way I want to. And I don't like that. So what I do is I think about my grandma. I think if my grandma was on the other end of this email, if my grandma was on the other end of this chat or this phone call, how would I treat her? Oh, it would be amazing, because I love my grandma. I love her. And I would have so much patience. I would have so much care in the response that I'm giving to her. And so before I take that next phone call, before I take that next chat, I think about my grandma and I fill myself with that love. And then I deal with this next customer. That's compassion operationalized. And every moment of every day in our lives, even our work lives, is an opportunity for us to essentially shine our light and share that light with others. Because for me, the truth is, compassion is now more of a safe word at work. We can talk about it. For me, it's really a proxy for the word love. How do we operationalize the word love? And if we really want to go there, love is just another word for the divine. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about your relationship with whatever that thing is. Even if you don't believe it's a thing, we can be that person at work just as well as we can be that person anywhere else. Now, let's see. I am going to skip that part. And I think that we should do a practice. And then we'll do, actually, you know what? We're going to do Q&A first, and then we'll do a practice. So I am going to stop sharing, if I can. And I would love to take some Q&A from you all for a bit, and then we'll do a practice together. We'll do a practice focused on compassion. So I'm looking at the Q&A box. Yeah. So I see a question from Jan. Oh, here we go. In your book, you call gratitude a superpower. And how did gratitude sharing go over in the workplace? I think it's a natural thing, right? So first of all, some background on gratitude. Gratitude is a superpower. It shifts us from here to here. It shifts us from the dark to the light. It shifts us from challenges to opportunities, to fear, to opportunity and love. And it can happen in an instant. So have you ever had the situation where you're not feeling very great and somebody gives you a compliment or somebody shares something nice and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I feel pretty good. And you walk away with your bounce in your step. You can on purpose do this at work. So you could start every meeting. In fact, every staff meeting where you know each other, right? It's kind of a regular meeting. I encourage some sort of movement from here to here. It could be a question like, what are you grateful for? Or share something that you appreciate about someone else on the team, or just share something fun that happened. Anything that moves us from connecting with each other as humans first, instead of as coworkers first. But at LinkedIn, this is a very natural thing for us to do. We'll kick off a meeting with a kudo or a personal professional win or a gratitude. And then in the beginning, some people, when they first start this, they're like, oh my God, are we really going to take 6 minutes to do this? Because we're driven, right? We got stuff to do. And the answer is, yeah, we are going to take 6 minutes or 2 minutes or 12 minutes to do this. Because it's that movement into this different space which changes everything. It's that movement which allows us to have more meaning and connection and light in our life instead of just task lists and fear and doing. So it's incredibly powerful. Okay, I'm looking for, oh, here we go. Hi, Alfred. Have you had to redirect, refer, or suggest that someone seek additional help when they're seeking mindfulness, yet have trauma or triggers that arise? It's interesting. I often get questions like this that are about the challenges of mindfulness. I will answer it directly. I'm going to answer it in two ways. Like some people have trauma when they have mindfulness, or some people can't. And they often use this as a barrier to get started. Like we can't have a mindfulness practice because I'm not sure how to deal with this thing that might come up. And what I would say, just in my own experience, after 8 years and maybe 2 or 3 thousand sessions led, is that it's never come up for me personally. It's never come up. I've talked about it in theory a lot, but it's never come up. So the theory is, yes, if somebody has trauma or triggering, we can offer them some other suggestions. We can offer for some people get anxious if they close their eyes and meditate. So I offer that they open their eyes and focus on a specific thing, a pencil or a light or something. So of course there are lots of resources we offer when there's a challenge, but let's please, and I don't know how let's please not let any of these challenges get in our way. All right. Anshuma, how do you sustain the momentum for building a mindfulness culture within an organization if it started grassroots rather than from the top? Great question. Just do it. There are lots of these programs. In fact, I'm not at LinkedIn anymore, right? Not at LinkedIn anymore. And the program still exists. What I find is that many programs, whether it's at Aetna or at Google or at SAP and Intel and others, they come and go, they ebb and flow, often based on a senior leader or a person, or if there was funding that year. And in each case, there's something still happening. There's still grassroots. And so I would say you kind of ride the wind. When it's a season where you have a lot of support, you can get executive support, people are into it, you get as much done as possible. If there's a season where there's some headwinds, you still do as much as possible. And you go where the energy is, right? If you find yourself or your volunteers find themselves hating going to the session because it feels like work, stop. Go where the energy is. Because when we go where the energy is, this is where the light is. This is where the joy is, right? And so the answer is find your friends that are really interested. Find the person who's most excited and kind of let them be the wind in everybody else's sails. And if it's grassroots, a couple things. Find some partners. I like the people at Wisdom Labs as a partner to help provide resources from the outside. Those resources are very useful in helping scale and kind of taking some of the pressure off the individuals. And also find the senior most person you can inside your organization that's excited about this and get them to talk about it. Get whatever support you can get from them. We have a couple playbooks that I've written with friends about how to bring mindfulness to your workplace. I'll get them to Mark. We'll make sure that we get an email out after. But if you go to mindfulworkplacemovement.org, maybe, you'll find the playbook in there, Mindful Workplace Movement. All right, let's do one more question, then let's do a practice. What we got here? All right. Steven says, how do you deal with resistance for budgeting for mental health programming as it's not a line item in most budgets? And how do you suggest getting companies to appropriately budget for it? This was my pitch, right? This was my pitch. I talk about the ROI of it. I'd start with a senior leader. I would share some of the same exact stories I told about, physical exercise and mental exercise. I would start with the most senior leader, the budget holder, and I would say, do you care about our employees? And if they're not mad at me for the question, they're probably going to say yes. And I'm like, are our employees really important to the success of our company? And the answer is usually, yeah, that's obvious. It's like, okay, well, if we had a machine, if we had a software program that was the most responsible for the revenue of our company and the success of our company, and it was operating at 50 or 60% of capacity, would you invest in that? Well, yeah, of course we would. This is where we go. Then I share all the data. We don't even need to share all the data. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that people are struggling. People are struggling with anxiety and depression and stress. our budget for these things that help counter, that help add to our mental well-being, we should be spending 10 times on mental well-being as we are on physical well-being. So if we want to get cantankerous, I ask, what's the budget for physical wellness? How many gyms do we have? Do we offer discounts on, then I'm like, the same thing. How many of our employees do we need to do push-ups or run a 6-minute mile? At the end of the day, it should be obvious, but it starts in every one of these conversations as a business need, right? What's the important to the bottom line of the business in supporting mental health? And you work back from there. What's the business need? And there's lots of data and there's lots of research. I'm happy to come in and help. This is what I do now: is help individuals and companies become more conscious and mindful. So let me know if I can serve. So let's do a practice. Let's do a practice. First of all, it's so good to be here with you today and to have a chance to talk about this topic. But let's also not waste the opportunity to be together. One of my other favorite Rumi quotes is, spend as much time in the invisible world as you do the visible. Spend as much time in the invisible world as you do the visible. Change happens in both places. So if you would, find yourself a comfortable but relaxed position. Maybe take a deep breath in and let it go. Welcome you to close your eyes if you're comfortable. And if you're comfortable, put your hand on your heart, on your chest. And first, just feel the gentle rise and fall of your breath with your hand. And you might say to yourself inwardly, I'm here. And of course you're here. But is your attention here? Is that deepest part of you here, seen, heard? Do we allow that deepest part, that bright light, to shine freely? Everywhere, including at work. You might say to yourself inwardly, I am strong. I am creative. My light shines like 1,000 suns. I am compassionate. And I am love. I give myself love unconditionally. And I give others love unconditionally. If you like to visualize, you might visualize a golden light that starts where your hand is and grows. With each breath in, it gets larger and brighter. With each breath out, it holds and strengthens. Sort of like a balloon blowing up, this light around you grows more intensely. This is the real you. beyond mind, beyond emotion, beyond your body. And from this perspective, you can say inwardly, I am perfect just the way I am. Some of us, that catches in our throat. We're uncomfortable with that. Let go of that judgment and say it again. I am perfect just the way I am. And then say your name followed by I love you. So I would say, Scott, I love you, but you try it. And again, let go of any judgment or filter. Say it more. Continue to say it until you fully receive it unconditionally. I love you. Again, if you like to visualize that golden light from your heart growing, pulsing. And perhaps now shifting attention outward into the world. Notice what it's like to send your goodwill, to send that light out to your loved ones, your coworkers, the people in your country, the people in the whole of the universe, all living beings. Notice what it's like to send your unconditional love outward and have it be reflected back to you, magnified, amplified. Each one of us, separate, individual sparks of light, but connected in the ocean of love and mercy. As one light grows, the rest do as well. There's no limit to what you're capable of. May the blessings be. And when you're ready, you can return some attention and movement. You can stretch if you like. I want to thank you one more time for being part of my community and for being here. So go out there and be an ambassador for compassion today, because the world needs you, needs all of us. And with that, I'll turn it back to Brett and Mark.
Thank you for that. That was awesome. One particular quote that I picked up from your talk that I'm going to reshare with everyone is, compassion is moving from the me to the we, and it's the way you build a successful business. I really liked that. Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you. I love this is the real you, right? It's like, yes, thank you. Appreciate that so much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Scott. Here we go. So thank you very much, people, for being here for our first keynote. It was an amazing conversation with Scott. And we are going to take a little bit of a break before our next presentation. And Mark, what do you say?
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Scott. For anyone who wants to engage with Scott, please check out his book. We'll post some links in the chat, and we'll go from there. We'll see you all in the lounge.
Bye now.